going on, everybody? This is Alex Quin, and you're listening to the Hustle Inspires Hustle podcast. And today I'm very excited to be able to introduce director, writer, and producer Jason Horton, aka Jay Horton. What's up, man?
Hey, man, Alex. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. This is a great start to a Monday. I was just telling you like 2 minutes ago before we started rolling that I've gone on a tremendous binge of your YouTube channel. Oh my goodness, it is value packed. Let me tell you why I went on a binge. I've always been passionate about film, about entertainment. I dabble in a few projects myself with my team. I own a marketing company here in Miami, and we create content, we create podcasts, we do a bunch of stuff. And I found you just Googling keywords related to things that were important to things that we were working on. So your SEO is spot on. Your teachings are spot on. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Welcome.
Tell me, man, how long has this journey been for you? How long have you been in this industry?
Well, so I've been making movies since 2003. I directed my first feature the summer I graduated college. So yeah, like August 2003. And it took about a year to finish that and then to start getting it out into the world and marketing it and all. And things just kind of went after that. You know, it was like 1 or 2 movies a year for a couple of years. Then I was doing 4 or 5 movies a year. And, you know, now I do, because I'm doing documentaries as well as narrative features. So, you know, I can do as many as 10 or 12 in a year. And then in addition, I do my YouTube channel and, you know, create other types of content.
Yeah, so you're a natural bred content creator.
Yes.
What inspired you to do this?
Well,
like, you know, back in the day, when you were in college or before.
So I'm a smaller gentleman. You know, I'm 5'7", you know, but I was really small as a kid, like really small. Like I had a big growth spurt when I was like 17, you know, so I was like under 4 feet tall for like almost all the way through high school. So like I wasn't the best athlete, you know, I had friends, but you know, like sports wasn't really my thing. You know, like movies was where I took solace. So, you know, I was just really, really into movies. And as I got older, right around 18, I discovered, you know, Quentin Tarantino came out with Reservoir Dogs and he was talking about independent film. And I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. So like from there on, it was like pretty much filmmaking. And then a few years into the filmmaking, you know, most people get into filmmaking, they get into it to get other people to finance it. Other people will promote it, other people, you know, but as an independent filmmaker, you realize very quickly that that is not how it works. Like if you want to have success, you have to learn how to market yourself. You have to learn how to be basically an entrepreneur in the film industry. So that's like, I made a pivot into that between, 2014 and 17, and then started my YouTube channel and just kind of went from there.
You started your YouTube channel around 2014 to 17?
It's an old channel. I've had it for, you know, over 10 years, but I didn't really utilize it very much. I would just occasionally put up a trailer for my movie or something. But in, I think it was the summer of 2018, I decided to start creating content specific for YouTube to educate people about the business side of independent film, which, you know, at that point, there were some big channels, but there weren't many that were run by filmmakers that were actually making mini movies. You know, you had all these really big popular...
Walking the talk. Walking the talk.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at them, and even to this day, most of the really big filmmaking channels are not run by filmmakers that are actually making movies. You know, they're making educational content. So I saw a space for that, so decided to start making videos. And I did. I started out at 2 videos a week. I soon upped that to 3, and then I added interviews. And you know, so I did that pretty steady. You know, at least 3 or 4 videos a week for about 4 years. You know, all on that channel.
Staying consistent like that, let me tell you, you know, it's a lot of work, especially when you're actually a filmmaker and you have all these other things going on, all these obstacles and hoops you have to jump through to get your projects out there.
Yeah, totally.
Question: How did you fund your first film, and like what were some of the challenges?
So my first film, we actually funded it ourselves. And our total budget was about $5,000. So, you know, we put it on credit cards and did it. And So my second movie I actually found equity investment for, and like several others after that. But a lot of people ask about funding for movies like it's some magic trick, and it's really not. It's like it's a matter of going to people that have the money and pitching them for the money. Most of the movies that I've got funded traditionally, it was usually through a producer or an executive producer that I'd worked with on another show. So like I worked for several years as an editor and, years as a camera operator, and I'd work on a show, I'd hit it off with a producer, and, I would bide my time. And when I saw an opening, I would, make a pitch. And, I got, 4 or 5 movies financed like that before I started getting hired directly to direct features. And then I did that for a while before I decided to go on my own and do them all like myself.
That's awesome though, because you're able to draw the experience from all of those specific instances. And I saw from your channel that like I think at least it's what I picked up. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've kind of learned every aspect of each position when it comes to putting this together. Like you even are able to edit some of these projects yourself. And in some cases, you prefer to edit them yourself, correct?
Yeah, well, so I have edited almost every feature I've directed myself, and it's really kind of a pragmatic matter more than a creative thing. I'm not so controlling, like I have to do everything, but my level of expertise in editing, I'm not going to be able to hire somebody with my level of expertise for the kind of budgets that I'm doing. So I edit myself.
Yeah, you know too much. To find somebody that knows how much you know, it's tough. Or you have to find a few people, which increases the budget significantly.
Yeah, and even if they're not great, I mean, editors are expensive. That's the thing about like independent film and making your own movies. Too many people get on there and say, "I just want to direct, I just want to write," and that's great, man. Good, good for you. Go for that path. But especially when you're getting going, like it's just not 100% feasible unless you can really raise a lot of money or something like that, or you get lucky. Everybody always talks about the famous A-list directors as examples, and I'm like almost every single one, and I'm not knocking their skill or their talent, but there's an element of luck in that, it's that you just can't count on. So like if you want to get stuff done, you got to kind of learn how to do it.
Luck is when hard work meets opportunity. If you've been putting in the work, if you've been showing up, that one day where that right person talks about you in the right room, or they recommend you, and that's when everything lines up. And I do like that you talk about that in your content, because there is an element of luck in everything that we do in life. It's just showing up,
Yes.
So tell me, as far as your films, I know you like to stay within specific budgets because you've already mastered the making and the marketing of these type of films. What budgets do you usually stay within on most of your films, like an average?
So I work at 2 different levels. So for my narrative films now, I don't make them as much as I used to. I'll make one every year or every other year. That's, like narrative of fiction movie. And those budgets will be, anywhere from $75,000 up to about $500,000, and I'll spend the whole year working on that project. Now, in between there, I'll do all these little projects. Like for the last 4 years, I've been doing a lot of documentary stuff. So I make those for next to nothing. I mean, because I can do everything. I can shoot it, I can edit it. Outside of like traveling to the people or, working out a revenue split with another person who's doing some shooting, like there's hardly any upfront costs. Occasionally, I'll have to pay an interview subject, but, we're talking, less than $5,000 on those, and I can rock those out now, one a month if I want to.
Yeah. You're a content making machine, man. My respects, because I do podcasting. I've done a documentary, and I do several other things, and it's a lot of work. And it's also, at times it can be challenging to stay creative, and to manage so many moving pieces of so many different little projects and contractors and editing and project files and the computer crashing and all these things that could happen that the viewer that sees your project and enjoys it doesn't really see. But that's where the money is, and that the devil is in the details right there. That's what really makes the project, what it is. All that attention to detail.
Yeah, 100%.
What would you say is a common misconception about small budget filmmaking?
that, that it's hobbyists and that it's easy, that, and that I think people have a real huge misconception in how much these movies make on average. And small movies, that while they can make money, I talk about it on my channel. Hey, I make money with my movies, right? But, and I'm not talking about myself here, I'm talking about general numbers, but, for every, 100 independent films that are produced, well over half of those are not going to make their budget, regardless of how low it is. Like, it's a very tough business. Like, just getting the real cool thing about distribution today is, like, almost anybody can get their film distributed. You can get it out there. You can get it on Tubi. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on all these streaming platforms. But it doesn't, just getting them on there doesn't mean that you're going to make money. I have movies on Tubi that make, less than a couple of dollars a month. It's just like, if you have a monetized YouTube channel, and how sometimes you'll have videos that do, between $10 and $200, then you'll have other videos that make 30 cents. It's the same thing with feature films, and these things can make little money. And I think so many filmmakers out there just have this misconception that if they have a distributor, or if they get distribution, they have their movie out there, that there's a bar that they'll make at least like this much. And it's just not so. You could literally make a movie, give it to a distributor, and not see a dime. And it doesn't necessarily mean the distributor is ripping you off. It just means they literally didn't make any money past their,
or that the movie sucked. That doesn't necessarily mean that the movie sucked, or that they didn't do a good job. It's just the way it is.
And it has, and people will say, well, if you just make a good movie, and that's all that matters. And in saying this, I am not saying that making a good movie doesn't matter, because it does, but it's not the metric that, decides whether you're going to see money on the movie or not. It's one of many, but it's not the thing. I've seen good movies completely fail, like completely. And I won't name it, but one of the worst documentaries I ever made. I mean, it was a nightmare. It was technically not good. It's one of my highest earners, and it's not good. I mean, I myself, I made it and I say, this sucks. And it had the biggest first month of any documentary that I've ever put out.
It's so interesting. I work occasionally in marketing in the music industry. And what you're describing here in this specific aspect is very similar. There's a lot of talent out there, filmmakers, musicians, that are in some cases, most cases, better than some of the top earners in the industry. But they just haven't been discovered yet. They haven't had that luck. They haven't had that connection. They haven't had that experience. They haven't had the wisdom to connect the dots the way they need to connect the dots in order to be able to turn it into a fully functioning business. So this is your full-time thing. Like, you live off this.
Yes. Yeah. I've made my living as a filmmaker for over a decade, but like in the last probably 4 years, just like, I don't do hired work anymore. So like I did one job 2 years ago where I was hired to direct a documentary, but for the most part, I do no hired work. It's just the money I make off the exhibition of my movies or my content on YouTube.
I know the question might be subjective, right? But what could be, or what is the average lifetime value of a film, of a project, of a documentary making money? Does it die out after a few years, a few months? Is it something that is evergreen? It fluctuates? What have you seen from your experience?
It fluctuates. So usually for like the first 6 months, like the first 3 to 6 months, the first 90 days are your like golden time when it first comes out. It's probably never going to be higher than what you're making in those first 90 days. But, for like the first 6 months to a year is usually before it'll fall off to where you're hardly noticing it, like where it'll go from thousands of dollars down to, tens of dollars.
Yeah.
But then, a year later, that same documentary might And I couldn't tell you why, because like I've had documentaries that I've completely stopped marketing, and 2 or 3 years later it'll pop up in the algorithm on Tubi or on YouTube or wherever, and I'll make another $4,000 or $5,000 off of it. So there are certain projects that are evergreen and can go on forever. Some will never make a dime ever, and some will start out, they won't make a dime, and then 2 years later they'll make money. I hate to put it like this because it makes it sound maybe more pragmatic than artistic, but it's kind of a numbers game. I have about 70 projects in my library at this point that you'd consider to be features, and I make my living through a culmination of those projects. There's no 1 or 2 projects that make up the bulk of my income.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about and maybe I'm butchering this quote, so forgive me if I am, but what do you think about Walt Disney's quote? I believe it's something like, don't make movies to make money to make movies. Is that correct?
Yeah, I actually, so I agree with it. So I think like a lot, watching my channel, a lot of people get this like overly pragmatic image of me, and it's really not so. Like I'm very like super passionate about the art and about making my movies. It just also happens that I have very broad tastes. I like many different things, so it's not like selling out for me to do one thing or another. And I love the process. Like, I think the most important thing making money on anything is like you have to love doing it.
Yep.
Not the end result, not how it turns out, not how much money it makes you,
The process.
the act of doing it. Because if you're doing something in the arts, whether it's podcasting or movie making or whatever, you are going to spend a lot of time doing things that don't pay off, that don't give you that direct ROI, that you don't learn some big lesson from, that you just like, you literally, you have to spend time working on things, and you have to be okay with the fact that this thing might not ever pay off in a real way. You have to love the process. So,
but I like the way that you look at it though, man, because there is absolutely nothing wrong with, putting on your business hat and understanding how the business operates. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not passionate about it, or that it's not all love.
totally.
If you're not making money, you can't make more films.
Totally. And
it's how it works.
Well, and the cool thing about it too, that too many filmmakers, they have these preconceived notions and prejudices, like, I got in this to be a filmmaker, not a marketer, and I'm never going to market. And they hate it. They hate it, but they haven't even really done it yet, but they've already made up their minds that they're going to hate it and that it's going to be hard. Like when I started really getting into the marketing side of it around 2017, 2018. And, I'm watching videos on YouTube about marketing. I'm reading marketing books, and if you allow it to be, it can be fun. It can be creative. It can be cool. Like, I take almost as much pleasure from the marketing side of, my projects now that I do making them, maybe not quite as much, but close. Like, there is, like, you can enjoy it, that it can be enjoyable.
So question, listen, I know it's important to deliver full quality, but it's also important to understand that you need to stay within budget and you need to save on cost sometimes. What are some of your top cost saving tips that don't compromise the quality of your projects?
Well, I mean, the first thing is, like we kind of talked about before, it's learning how to do multiple tasks yourself. And one of the big things with filmmaking is, what do they say? Perfection is the enemy of or good, whatever, perfection and good. If you're spending all your time, trying to get perfect, there comes a certain point where you're spinning your wheels, where you're making changes to make changes. One of the biggest reasons that I'm able to make a living, that I keep doing my thing, is like I get to a point on almost every project where I know when to step away from it. Like, this is as good as this is going to get with the resources that I have at this time.
And the time and money I've spent into it. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm either going to put it out, or I'm going to set it aside and wait till those resources come in. For me, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be put it out, because I don't believe in waiting for some fictitious thing that may or may not happen.
Yeah, done is better than perfect in some cases, if not most.
Yeah.
Okay, so when looking at from a bird's eye approach, top down approach, zoomed out, how do you prioritize where you invest the budget of your film? What takes priority?
That's a good question. So like on the big ones, a lot of it is in production. Because like I feel like if you're making a movie for, more than a few $1,000s, like, it's about the production value, it's about the name talent you can attach to it. Like I'll really put a lot of effort there. In documentaries are mostly made in post, so I put most of my effort into the editing and then the promotion. And so that's pretty much. I would say at this point, I'm probably, if you count both the features and the documentaries, I'm probably 40% on production and post and 60% on marketing and logistics.
Yeah, I love how much you talk about marketing. Because so many people think that just having a finished product, well, it's done, I'm going to upload it to these platforms and they're like, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be rich
Right.
now. Everybody's going to watch. It's like, hey, listen, man, there's a lot of people doing this. There's a lot of good content out there. There's also a lot of shit content out there. And you have to understand that there needs to be a good marketing rollout. In one of your videos, you discuss having several pieces of content, if not for the day, for the week, for weeks on end for your promotions, because you have to go hard. And you just mentioned that the first 60, 90, 120 days are crucial.
Yes.
And if you're just dragging your feet on promotions and then wondering why money is not coming in, or maybe not just money, but why it's not getting a good response, well, that's why, because people don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, and filmmakers especially get a little bit of an ego about it, and they feel like it's like I shouldn't be tooting my own horn like other people should do it. But like on a lower level, when you're doing $100,000 movie or under 200 or under, unless you can afford to pay someone to do it, or you just have a buddy that's going to do it for you, nobody's going to go into the horror groups on Facebook and post about your movie. You're going to have to do that, especially when it first comes out. Nobody else is going to do it for you. And you have to have new types of content to post. Like if you go into certain groups and try to post the same thing, every week, they're going to kick you out of that group. You have to have new stuff, plus it just, who the hell wants to look at the same poster like over and I see people on their Facebook walls, the filmmakers, and they post the same poster and they post it 2 or 3 times a week. And they have like, maybe 1,000, people on their Facebook list. I'm like by about the 4th week, whoever's going to see that has seen it, man. Like move on to something else.
And a poster doesn't tell much, even though pictures can tell 1,000 words. It doesn't tell much.
No, you need different types of things, and that's the because traditionally with filmmaking, it's been poster and trailer, maybe some behind the scenes stuff. Like those are the traditional marketing tools. And a lot of filmmakers just haven't, even younger filmmakers haven't wrapped their heads around like how to use reels and, how to use, like they just are stories or, whatever it is. Like you have to market a film like you post on social media,
I like that you mentioned that, because going back to what I was mentioning about the music industry on the music side of entertainment, many artists drop a song and they just post up cover art. And then their management teams or people like me, their marketers, tell them, hey, BTS, the making of, studio time, or just get in front of the camera and talk about why you wanted to do this project, why it's important, who was involved. All of these things are important in any type of content that you're putting out there. Podcasting, movies, music. I love that you're throwing these golden nuggets out there.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, there are some projects that maybe don't like they could benefit from it, but maybe the benefit wouldn't be strong enough to do it. Like I have some, lower level documentaries that I do that I don't put quite as much effort into the marketing. Like what I'll do, like on some, I do this on pretty much everyone. I'll take a documentary and I will break it down, say it's a 70-minute documentary, and I'll break it down into like 5-minute segments. Almost the entire movie. And I'll rebroadcast those 5-minute segments, those clips, and that usually stand on their own on YouTube. And then a couple of months later, I might break those down even a little bit more and do them into shorter reels for TikTok or for Instagram, or even Facebook's doing well with reels now, that and the posters might be all that I do for those particular projects. And also like some documentaries I do, like I never do exploitive stuff, but I do cover some subjects that I don't necessarily believe in. I'm fascinated by people that believe in Bigfoot. I don't believe in Bigfoot, but I'm fascinated by the people that do, and I like doing those documentaries. But it would be disingenuous for me to do a reel and talk about Bigfoot, so I don't.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well in that case, you're playing devil's advocate.
Totally.
You're tapping into something that people might be interested in, and then you're showing your angle and your side on it, which is pretty cool. It shows that you're an open-minded individual.
Yeah. But yeah, question. So I do.
Question. You have all these projects. You're marketing these projects in many different ways, which we can get into. When do you know, okay, I cannot spend any more money marketing this project? Are there like red flags or key things that you look at where it's like, no matter how much more I spend on this, I'm not going to see an ROI. It's already lived its course.
Yeah. It's usually the cool thing about movies is, like I said, usually your golden time is like the first 90 days. So the first 90 days, you can potentially have a strong showing regardless of what your marketing's doing, because because of algorithms and the way that works. I still spend my money there, but once it gets out of that first 90 days and it falls off a little bit, like maybe around month 5, that's when I'll experiment with more or less expenditures. I have a set amount that I spend on new things for about the first 90 days, and it's not a ton. And then after that, I usually take a month like completely off of anything paid. And then the month following, I will start my paid ads again. And I will adjust my rates little by little, either up or down, depending on how it's performing. But if I have a movie and it's making on average $6,000 a month for the first 3 months, and then say it falls off and when they fall off, they fall off. So like by month 4, it might fall off to a couple of $100 a month, all the way up from 5,000. It can be that drastic. So then the next month I'll say, okay, this made $200. So this month I'm going to spend $300 in Facebook ads, and I'll direct them to most likely to Amazon, because that's where the rentals are. I get the best return. So I'll do that, and I'll do it for 2 months, and I'll see how it's going. If my returns are close to equal or above, I'll mess around with the ads a little bit more. If it's like way down, I'll pretty much abandon it as far as paid ads go. Like in anything. Yeah. And because a lot of these, what I've found is if you just keep them just kind of in the public conscious. So like I have an old documentary, it came out in 2019, I think. And so I ran my ads on it, and I got this one Facebook ad on a video that was like 0.002 per click through. Like it was like killing. And so I've left that same ad running for almost 4 years. Like at this point, I only spend like $1 or $2 a day on it, but I continue running that ad, and that movie has never fallen anywhere close to the to the point where the ROI doesn't make sense. So I leave it. And like on a lot of those little ones, I'll leave them going in perpetuity, like say $1 a day, until it falls under the point where it's making less than $100. Then I'll get rid of it.
Okay. Now, in terms of, I want to ask this quick question, and I want to jump back to advertising. Sure. In terms of budgets and in terms of return on investment, right? Let's say you spend $10K on a project. You launch the project. It's been a few weeks, a few months. You're moving the project. Money's coming in. Do you have any specific rules for how you set money aside? For example, okay, 50% is going to go towards paying back the money I spent to make it, and then maybe 50% is going to go towards marketing it, so it makes more money. So it makes me more money towards that other 50%. Is there any specific rules or any specific best practices that you see people in the industry do to manage the money that comes in?
Usually it is something like that. On bigger projects, I definitely have to set it aside and say, okay, this much we're going to spend on marketing. And usually it is something like, 50-50 or 60-40, something like that. But there are, on smaller projects, I honestly kind of play them by ear. Like I don't have set things. I wait and see what they're doing. So like if I have a little documentary that I spent almost nothing on, and I think that like this came out well and this has legs, like I might double the amount that I spent on it the first month on ads,
Right.
just because I think like this could really, I think with movies, I think the problem that people get into too with paid ads is they're looking too much at the direct ROI and not that, like the way I look at it, and I do a little bit direct ROI, but for the most part, it's more about getting a push in the algorithm, because that's like when you get to Amazon or Tubi or YouTube, that's what's going to pick you up. Like the ads can boost it, and they can bring in the right type of people so that the algorithm can show the movie to more of the right type of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like on a lot of them, I just like, I look at the first month or two, I might overspend a little bit just because I'm trying to teach those algorithms what type of person was going to watch this movie.
That's right. Yeah, you're trying to give it that push.
Yeah. So that is how I look at it anyway. And as long as my expenditure is not more than what I'm making, I'll, at least in the first couple of months, I'll kind of like, I'll push it almost all the way up to the limit.
So do you run Facebook ads, Instagram ads? Do you ever run YouTube ads?
So I am mostly Facebook and Instagram because those are the platforms I'm most comfortable with. I have the most experience with. I've played with YouTube ads a little bit, but I haven't had one perform for me anywhere close to what the YouTube and Facebook and Instagram does. I'm sure that they are valid and good. I just haven't quite got it figured out, or what type of content to push,
That's sensible. Okay. As far as influencers, right? There's a lot of influencers out there on YouTube and on TikTok and all these platforms that do reviews of films, and they have a ton of followers, a ton of engagement. Do you ever use these type of people in your marketing strategies?
So I hadn't for the longest time, but I've really, like this last year, I'm starting to embrace that a lot more.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Like my movie Craving that just came out. I hired Mia Goes to the Movies off of Instagram. She has a couple of million followers. She does the little does reels, and does some clips from the movie and talks about it a little bit. They get millions of views. And so I hired her to do a video for me, which, again, it's hard to tell exactly how much it brought in, but I did see a spike that month. And then there's another filmmaker named Devin Bray who has this group in Facebook called Best Tubi Movies. They have about 500,000 followers, and he has another couple 100,000 on his filmmaking page. And if he posts a poster for you, like with your movie, you'll get anywhere from, a couple of thousand up to 10,000 like shares and comments and likes almost right away with no boosting. Like it's all organic. And I think he typically charges filmmakers a couple $100 for that service. And, I saw when he boosted Craving for me, I went from, about doubled my return that month. Now, could it have just been algorithmic and not been that? I don't know. That's the thing about marketing. And when you're spending on something, a lot of your data, it is anecdotal to an extent. So it's hard to say with 100% certainty because there's no pixel, there's no way to tell.
I was about to go there.
Because it's not a paid ad. This is just a dude that's like, hey, give me $200 and I'll post your thing on my wall. And he'll show you the analytics for it. But I can tell you that of the whatever 10,000 people that liked the thing, 4,000 of them clicked through. I could tell. But did they actually watch or purchase or rent? I don't know. Yeah.
I'm guessing and I'm hoping that side of the industry will develop soon. So filmmakers can have a lot more tools in advertising, specifically when you're, let's say, Facebook, Instagram ads, you're running Facebook, Instagram ads. There's no pixel. There is no thank you page you could forward people to after they rented or purchased on Amazon. So you can't really correlate the immediate ROI, but I'm sure it'll get there soon. I'm sure they're working on figuring something like that out.
Yeah.
Right. So question for you. What is the average rental price for your projects? Maybe it fluctuates, but is there a sweet spot?
Yeah. So for smaller indie productions, 99-cent rental, unless like for when it first comes out, I might have it priced at like $3.99, or I think Craving is $4.99,
Yeah.
because it was a bigger project. But like on the docs, 99 cents, which is about as low as you can go. But I find that to be pretty good for indie stuff, because it's really hard to get, a regular Joe to spend anything on an independent film they've never heard of. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like if it doesn't star, Brad Pitt or whoever, they're not, even if movies do star Brad Pitt, it's hard to get people to actually rent,
Yeah.
So I find the lowest barrier to entry with indie stuff usually does pretty well. And where rental prices in general had fallen pretty low on independent movies between like 2019 and 2021 and 2. But in this last probably year, I at least I've seen in my library and a distributor that I work with, those TVOD rental numbers have started coming back up. Like people are renting a little more than what they were a couple of years ago.
In regards to advertising, like location wise, your projects, do you only advertise in the United States, or do you dabble into other countries?
So it depends on the project. I mostly concentrate on the United States, because with indie productions, at least made out of the US, we're going to make 90% of our money on Amazon US and Tubi TV, which is, region specific. So I find that for the most part, I'm US. Now on the documentaries, like, because once a documentary gets into Amazon's system, like they'll start putting it, because Amazon's worldwide, so you'll get Amazon Australia and a bunch of other English speaking territories. So like I have a documentary called Don't Call Me Bigfoot that I noticed was doing really well in Australia, so I started running some targeted ads based in Australia. I've had some other UFO documentaries that did really well in the UK, so I'll run ads targeted to the UK, but I usually start US.
Okay. In regards to, we're talking international. For each of your projects, do you make it a point to be able to have captions in all these different languages so they are made available to these regions?
So I used to not, because it can be very expensive to get it
it's expensive as shit.
Yeah, to get it done right. Although, with AI learning and stuff, the foreign captioning and transcriptions have gotten better and better. I forget the name of the website. I have it on my.
I use Rev.
Yeah, that's Rev is where I do my paid stuff. But like, so I just Craving, for example. I don't know I'll say it. So there's a website that translates. It's an AI system, and it translates. If you pay for your captions, like from Rev, in English, and then I give them those English captions, the SRT file, and the AI translates it into whatever the language is. And it used to be that those things were pretty bad, like if you did it on YouTube or whatever, they were never very good. But this one was, at least on the 5 or 6 projects I've done, has been pretty spot on. So I've been using it, and it passed quality control, and it's got it in the different countries now. So I'm doing that, and it's free.
Free? Yeah, because I tried one of those
like
AI tools recently. I grabbed the Rev file, and it was in English, and I tried to do Spanish and German captions, but Amazon rejected the format once it spit it back out to me in an SRT file. So I had to go back to Rev. But it's interesting to hear that there's other options out there to be able to use that, because it is a big part of it. And these, I mean, for example, like you want to get German captions for something that's like an hour and 15, you're paying like $700-$800 depending on the service you're using, and that's on the low end.
Yeah. And the return on it can be less than that. So like it's definitely a risk. But like I said, the way I feel about the AI stuff is a lot of it, it's getting better. So like I feel that the AI translation thing, within the next year, I think it'll be pretty
figured out.
Yeah. I mean, so far I have 6 projects that have been translated into 7 different languages with it, and I've had no problems so far.
Excellent. Good to hear. Are film festivals still relevant for small budget filmmakers?
Yes.
Small to medium budget filmmakers?
Yes, but not in the way a lot of people think. Like, it's not though. It's not like the old days where you're gonna go to a couple of film festivals and it's gonna get you distribution, and like that happens, but very, very rarely. I think as far as and I think there's some marketing pluses to film festivals. Like one thing that's gotten really hard for an independent filmmaker is getting legitimate, like verified reviews for your film, like, from Rotten Tomato critics and stuff like that. Just because unless you're hiring a PR company that has those contacts, even if you have the contacts yourself, they don't like to deal with individuals anymore. There's so many people making movies. So like it used to be, 10 years ago, I could just send out an email to, Dread Central or Fangoria or, even Variety or Hollywood Reporter and possibly get my movie reviewed. Like these days, like none of them will even speak to me as an individual. Like, so I have to either go through a, PR firm, which, you have to pay anywhere from a couple $1,000 to $5,000 to get that done, or a shortcut, or maybe a longer cut, is to do a film festival run. And if you do decent in the film festivals, you'll get reviews out of almost every one. So like if you do a 6 or a 7 month film festival run, you'll probably have amassed 30 or 40 reviews by that point. Whereas like I think Craving right now has like maybe somewhere around 30 reviews. And I have reached out to close to 1,000 reviewers.
Damn,
and that's how many I got back. And I have I have experience with it. I have a bunch of movies out. I even have relationships with some of these publications over the years, and they just like they don't look at the stuff anymore.
Well, yeah. I love that advice you just gave. I think it's really spot on. The whole thing with the film festivals, it is important to get it out there a bit, to get some reviews, but it still shouldn't neglect the marketing side and everything else that we've discussed so far, right?
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about film festivals too is I think I have some friends who have a film that has been on the festival circuit for a little over a year now, and it's done really well. They've been in some major festivals, but they've been in it too long. So like now, by the time the movie comes out, all of the big press that they got happened like a year ago. Like they've lost that momentum. Like whereas if they would have came out 3 or 4 months after their film festival run, right on the tail of those big festivals, because the festivals get smaller and smaller the longer your film festival run is. So now at this point, like they have all that press, which is great. You can always point people back to it, but the momentum has, gone. So I think there's a trade-off in that too. Like if you're going to do a festival run, I wouldn't do it more than a year unless it was just like an excellent movie.
Right. And then also know when to do your press, your marketing, so it kind of holds up and it doesn't die down. But one thing is finishing and the other thing is continuing, and just kind of still holding the project up. Is that right?
Yes, I think so.
How do you choose the right cast and crew with limited budgets?
I mean, basically, it's kind of what you can afford and what you have access to. So when I make a bigger movie, I hire the best people that I can. Usually with independent stuff, it's usually a mix of people you've worked with before, whether it's behind the camera or in front of the camera. Like I work with a lot of the same people, and because there's like making a movie, there's so many things that can go wrong. And like on an independent movie, like, we have to shoot these movies sometimes in, 10 days or less. Right. So if you have one bad day due to one bad person on a 10-day shoot, that's 10% of your movie or maybe more that's screwed. Whereas with a bigger budget and you lost a day, whatever. It's, we just had an off day. But like one bad apple, or one person that doesn't deliver what they're supposed to can really derail a small movie like very easily. So, I tend to work with a lot of the same people.
Okay. Can you share a success story from someone who followed your YouTube tutorials and you're proud of some of the work that you've seen them accomplish?
Yeah. So I mentioned him a little bit earlier. Devin Bray, he's a filmmaker out of Omaha, Nebraska. He was in music for years, and then he did a couple of lower budget movies. I think they were like on YouTube or something, or maybe he got small distribution. And he started watching my channel, I think in 2019. And then in 20 or 21, he was like, he was watching it, taking everything in. He's like, we can do this. They made a movie called PP Lone Gone, and it went viral. I mean, it killed. Like, and he made, he
Wait, was
created
that these two guys you had that
yeah,
you were on the
yeah,
YouTube
yeah,
video with?
yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah, yeah,
That was
that's him.
cool. They were
Yeah,
showing you love. Yeah, they were like, dude, like we learned so much from you. Thank you.
totally. And those guys have taken that, and I mean, to be quite honest, they're doing better with my system than I am. They're knocking it out of the park. Like, I think they're, after People and Gone, they've done 2 other movies. They got a 4th one coming out, and every single one of those are 6-figure earners. Which on a small independent film, that's huge. They've built
that's your goal, obviously, right? With at least with the YouTube channel, like
Totally.
you're doing educational content, and then if people are seeing success with some of the things that they're implementing from your teachings, then it shows that
it shows that
you're
it
making
can
it happen.
definitely work. Now, and what I also like to tell people, because I like to be real about what I'm doing. So like, these guys did it, but there's whatever, I have 16,000 subscribers, so let's say 10 to make it an easy number. So if I have 10,000 people that follow those exact same steps, there's going to be less than probably 100 that actually succeed. And that's just because in the business, regardless of how you attack it or how smart you are or what you do, most don't succeed. They just don't. That is the world we are living in. Like, I wouldn't be sitting here making a living if I didn't just keep doing it. Like, keep making them. So I make 10, I made put out 10 projects this year, and probably 4 made something that people would consider to be substantial. And like the other 6 are like, it's peanuts.
Hang it in there.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on the importance of film school versus hands-on experience?
I think hands-on experience trumps film school for sure. I think there are some. I went to film school, so I do, and I don't regret it. But I think school is more about learning how to learn than actually learning the thing. I know that sounds weird, but
no, it's not. I understand what you're saying.
Like what I learned in college was how to attack problems. I didn't necessarily, from film school, I didn't learn how to make movies, but taking Spanish, and learning how to study Spanish, and I had to study it in a different way, and I studied this other thing, and you can use those learning techniques on other things. So like learning how to learn, I think that, and then there's networking within good film schools that can be very valuable. I went to a smaller one, so there's not a ton of people from my graduating class that are still working. But if you go somewhere like Full Sail or UCLA or something like that, there's going and you're nice and you make friends and you network. Yeah, there's going to be people in your class that are working in the business, in the next 5 or 10 years. So I think
good positions. And have good positions, because I know a lot of people down here in Miami, where I'm from, who work in the entertainment industry. A lot of them went to Full Sail up in Orlando, and now they have really high positions in the companies that they work in. So I'm glad that you went there, because a lot of people are always knocking school, and school is important, man. There's a lot of things that you pick up from school, but it's also good not to neglect the fact that out there in the street, you got to be street smart. You got to understand how to do things by actually being in the field. It's a nice balance that you should be able to have. So thank you for sharing that, man. What advice do you have for filmmakers regarding intellectual property and protecting their work?
So I think this is something that filmmakers worry way too much about, honestly. Because there's a guy on Facebook, and he's always writing these screenplays. He has yet to produce a movie, but he's always talking about how he's going to the Library of Congress, and I'm registering my script, and he's spending all of this money. It's like I think it's $65 right now to register a script with Library of Congress, and really, nobody is out there trying to steal your script. Like, how hard it is to get someone to read a script, period. Like, nobody is wanting to steal your little indie script, and I mean, now when a movie actually goes into production, I will copyright it. I will copyright the script, but I won't copyright it until it's in production. I have probably 20 scripts written that have not been produced, and most of them I will not be able to make in my lifetime. I have no intention of copyrighting those scripts unless they move forward. And if somebody comes up with an idea similar to mine, it's not going to protect you anyway.
And you didn't do it. You didn't act on it. So,
Yeah. As far as filmmaking goes, I think it's something that people worry too much about the IP, and they worry too much about piracy. Like, look, I'm not defending piracy. Piracy sucks. I hate pirates, but it's a fact of life. And there's nothing you can do to protect yourself. There's a few steps, like I won't send out the movie for review until I get close to the date, because somebody's going to upload it. But at a certain point, you just gotta
put it out there.
Yeah. Because I had somebody in one of my filmmaking groups was like, well, I don't want to put my movie on Amazon first, because as soon as it goes on Amazon, it's going to be on all the pirate sites. Who cares? Honestly, like I said, pirating sucks, but there's people that pay for stuff and there's people that pirate stuff, and the people that pay for stuff are still going to pay for it. The people that don't aren't, regardless of whether it's going to be there or not.
Very objective way of looking at it. Now, while still talking about protecting your work, I want to touch lightly on the legal side. A lot of people overlook this part, but as far as releases for people on camera, as far as maybe using footage and getting permission for that, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that is very important. So one thing that people talk about on film is errors and omissions insurance, which is basically like a safeguard if you miss one of those things. But I think errors and omissions insurance on smaller films, unless the distributor is absolutely requiring it, is a complete waste of money and time. Because if you just dot all your I's and cross all your T's, get your proper release forms, anybody that worked on the film, paid or not paid, they should have some kind of release form.
Work for hire,
yeah.
Image and likeness, whatever.
Absolutely. And on documentaries, I personally, I don't mess with fair use. If it's not something that I shot or that I have licensed, I won't put it in my documentary. That's just me. I just don't mess with it. Fair use is a defense, but it is not a bulletproof defense, and people can still sue you. And on a small movie, even if they lose that suit, getting sued sucks. So it's not worth the risk to my way of thinking. So, but
it's a strain on you. You have to spend money on lawyers. You're worried about it. It's very taxing on your health, on your mental health. It's too much. So I like what you're saying there. As far as for the people that like to talk about asset protection, do you see people in your industry usually registering an LLC per project in case each one project has an issue? It's tied to that LLC. It doesn't compromise the rest of the projects.
Yes, and that is so my official advice on the LLCs for different projects is yes, have an LLC for every project. Now, there are some examples like some of the documentaries that I make that are very low budget, or we're talking I don't spend much on them, and I will put a certain number of those under the same LLC. If next to nothing was spent on it, I'm kind of not that worried about it. So I'll put those all in this umbrella. But every single project I have that's over, say, $50,000 definitely has its own LLC, definitely has its own banking account, everything's separated.
Okay, cool. And listen, man, I know these are very specific questions. A lot of people won't answer these questions in depth like you are, because you're just holding on to all the info and all the wisdom. But I saw from your YouTube channel that you're very helpful, and these are questions that I see a lot of people have, right?
I think it's important, as filmmakers and as businessmen, to share information. There's certain proprietary stuff, I'm not going to say what the specific movie made, because I have other people that are involved in it. But I think by and large, there's this secrecy with business, and I think it's old thinking. I think it's, it's boomer thinking. You don't talk about finances, you don't, you know what I mean? And I think that it's that kind of secrecy that is allowed predatory distributors to take advantage of filmmakers, that it's allowed, filmmakers that are running scams, that it's allowed all of these bad things to go, because nobody's talking about it. Nobody wants to talk about what they made. So if a filmmaker signs this deal with this distributor and they end up signing a 45%, back end away to them, and there's no other filmmakers that are in public saying, hey, 45% is a bad deal. You know what I mean? Like it's a way, sharing information is a way to like grow together.
Right.
You're not, I remember one filmmaker once told me, why are you giving away the secret? Like it was going to create more competition or something. I'm like, oh man, that's
Some
just a
people do.
wrong. Yeah,
Some people do think that. I used to think that way before when I was younger.
I
I
did
wanted to
too.
hold
I
on.
did too.
I wanted to hold on to the secrets, and I was like, whatever, man. When people are gonna do what they do, they're gonna find out. If
Yeah.
you're in your lane, you're doing your thing. You have your own flavor.
Yeah.
Whatever, do your thing.
And still what I've come to realize is in regards to marketing or success in anything, it's not so much about the specific knowledge, it's about the execution of that knowledge. You know, and there are some people, no matter how much knowledge they are, they're just never going to execute it right. I mean, I've had people follow my advice and say, hey man, I followed your video, I did this and this, and I didn't make anything. And you know, just out of like morbid curiosity, I'll go look at their stuff, and they took the wrong lessons. Like they're not doing what I said. They're doing
Yeah.
pieces of it, but they're not, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's
So
cool. That's cool that you look into it though.
I do, not always, but occasionally.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can look at
Yeah.
everything. Now, let's say it's 2023. I'm a new indie filmmaker. Have my finished project. What are the top distributors I should be looking at that could be considered trustworthy and could help me get on the right foot if that's my goal?
Yeah.
You
So
mentioned Amazon, you mentioned YouTube, Tubi.
yeah, for the platforms, yeah.
Mhm.
As far as distributors to get there, and it depends on your budget level, but most independent filmmakers are going to be well under $100,000. So like, and movies made under that, it's really hard for people to wrap their heads around the fact that there are just different levels of movies and different levels of distribution. So a movie under 100,000, there's a company called Film Hub that they're basically a distribution platform. They're kind of like an aggregator. You upload your movie to them and they submit it to hundreds of different platforms. They charge nothing up front. They take 20% of the back end. Like that's their split. And they deliver to Amazon, they deliver to Tubi, they deliver to all of the ones where you'll make money. Now, are you going to get on Netflix or Hulu or something like that? No, you're not. But movie under $100,000, you most likely weren't going to get there anyway. You know, so it's like, so that they're a really good choice for a starting filmmaker, and it's non-exclusive. So you can still sell other territories on your own, or you could still do YouTube if you decided whatever, you know. Then next to them, there's a company called Indie Rights, and they're a traditional distributor. But they deliver to a lot of the same platforms. They take the same back end, they charge no marketing fees. And if your movie has some more legs, like they might sell some foreign territories for you, or, you know, like they have connections to some of the bigger streamers, you know, like a couple horror filmmakers just got direct deals with Shudder through them, or Screambox, or, you know, stuff like that. You know, so like those are the two main ones. Now, if you have something that's just next level excellent, you might start looking at like the next tier of distributors, and that's where you start getting into sales fees, and you know, like the percents go up a little bit. Like maybe they'll take 35 as opposed to 20, and they'll charge you another, you know, 10 to 25 in sales fees. And there are some of those that are, you know, that are legit. But if you put $100,000 movie with a company that's taken $35,000 in sales fees, odds of it making a profit are low unless the movie does really, really well. It does happen, but you know, most filmmakers jump right to when they don't make money, the distributor's ripping them off. Most of the time, they're not ripping them off. It's just the wrong fit, you know.
Understood. So to clarify, to make sure I'm understanding, there is a difference between streamers, aggregators, and distributors.
Yeah, like a streamer is they're just the platform. So like Tubi and Amazon, yeah, they're destinations. But to get to those destinations, you need either the distributor or the aggregator. You know, now in the case of Amazon, you can upload directly
with them.
Yeah, Prime Video Direct, but it's not paying what it used to. And a lot of times when the last 3 projects I tried to upload directly, they all got rejected. Now the same projects were picked up through either Film Hub or Indie Rights and then got up. So you know what I mean? But yeah, so
Okay.
the platforms are the platforms, and then an aggregator and a distributor, they're basically the same thing. It's just an aggregator is doing nothing besides placing your film. Like a
Okay.
distributor will actually get out there, they're selling your film. They're trying to like go direct, they're making calls, they're, you know, getting more active in it.
Yeah, they're getting their they're putting the elbow work in. The other one is just the platform you put it on.
Yes,
They
yeah,
have
exactly.
relationships already. It gets automatically connected to whoever accepts.
Exactly. And you know, it depends on the movie. You know, like I've had movies do like gangbusters through Film Hub, and you know, I've had others do gangbusters through Indie Rights. It just depends. It just depends.
Now, is there any of these distributors or aggregators that offer opportunities? Let's say Colombia, okay? Colombia, there's a TV station. They're looking for work. They're looking for content to distribute. This distributor or aggregator knows them, and then you're able to sell to networks in different countries. Is that a
Yeah.
thing within
Oh,
those?
yeah, totally, totally. Now, the thing is again, when you're talking about movies under $100,000, those opportunities are very few and far between. Most cable networks are not going to want to mess with a movie that cheap. They
Okay.
just won't mess with it. It doesn't have the production value. It doesn't have the names they need, so they won't. That's something, you know, and so some movies do squeak through, and filmmakers tend to look at the exceptions as the rule, you know, but
Hmm.
those are exceptions. They got lucky. Most of us are not going to get those deals with budgets that low. It's just, you know, you go. So I typically go where I know, but those deals with, there are larger distributors that do more of those deals, and you can go with them. But like I said, the gamble is they're going to take 35%. There's going to be the sales fees. So,
It's like
you
an
know,
upfront fee. That's what you're saying?
it's not necessarily it's not necessarily upfront, but when the
Uh-huh.
movie first makes money, the first 25 or $35,000 will
They
come
take.
out of that for their sales fees. Yeah,
Very similar to an artist do a 360 deal, or
exactly.
they get an advance. They give
Yeah,
a
yeah.
$1 million advance, but it comes out of their future earnings.
Yeah, and there's no perfect answer. Like you have to balance like how much more will it possibly make if I go with this larger distributor, or do I go with the smaller one with no fees with less reach? And where is that, you know, back and forth? And it seems like you know, like in the next couple of years, that there's less and less where the larger distributors are going to help. Like
Yeah.
I would say within the next like 5 years, as far as smaller films, I probably wouldn't even mess, like Craving, for example. We spent almost 100 grand on that, and I could have, I considered, you know, shopping it to some bigger distributors, but at the end of the day, I went with what I knew it was going to make, as opposed to like taking that little extra
Taking
risk
that
and
chance. Yeah.
and maybe getting on a cable network. And the thing about those is those bigger deals that everybody's chasing, at least for smaller movies, they really don't pay that much. You know,
Okay.
I interviewed a filmmaker on my channel. They had a movie, Netflix picked it up. It was on Netflix for a year or something. It was like one of their like #1 movies for a couple of weeks. Like I can't say exactly what it made, but it did not make what people would think it made. And
Yeah.
then, you know, a year later, when that movie came out on Tubi and everything else, that's where it made its money. Like
Mm.
the that Netflix deal, like for a small movie, it's not going to pay anything. It
Everything
might,
isn't always what it seems. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. It might help you in visibility. Like, you know, there's an argument to be made that having it on Netflix and having that popularity helped, you know, move the Tubi
Yeah.
numbers. But, you know,
It's a flex. Oh, Netflix. It's a
yeah,
top of
totally,
the line.
totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Jason, where could we find you on socials? Where are you most active? Where you want to send people to?
I'm probably most active on Facebook. You can find me there, Jason Horton or Jay Horton. Pretty much everywhere else, I'm the Jay Horton, THEJ Horton. Twitter, Instagram, well, not Twitter much anymore, but Instagram and TikTok, and now Threads.
Threads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, Jason, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak to me today. I'm a fan of your content. I respect your content. I appreciate your mentorship. your digital mentorship, because you mentored me before we even met in person through my
Nice.
binges of your YouTube channel. Thank you, man. This is going to be extremely helpful. Everyone, everything that we talked about here on this podcast is going to be linked to the show notes. So whatever platform you're listening on, or whether you're on the website hustleinspireshustle.com, go to the podcast section. You'll find our episode. And if you have any specific questions or you guys want to connect with Jason, don't be afraid to comment on his videos. Shoot him a DM. He's active on socials and he helps as much as he can with the time that he has available to mentor. But thanks a lot, Jason. I really appreciate you joining us here today.
No problem. It was fun.
All righty, y'all. Alex, Quin, Jason Horton, Hustle Inspires Hustle. See you on the next episode.